Hi, Tony Robbins here with Power Talk. Thanks for watching again. Tonight is going to be a very exciting evening, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to introduce to you a couple that have had a dramatic effect on the quality of my life. In fact, I believe that of all the Power Talks you've listened to, this may be one of the most important ones of all. And that's a big thing to say when you consider the 30 or so luminaries that we've had here, and I know many of them have probably had This first picture here, I guess, is a picture of a hamburger. Is that right? What's the megahertz on this? What's the amount of energy available out of this?
The harmonic energy, the frequency that's emitted from this matter is approximately 5 megahertz.
Oh my God, and we need 60, 70 in that range.
Or higher.
Or higher to really be functioning. And then what I see next here is this thing that's sparking like crazy. I guess this is a sprout of some sort?
It's a lentil sprout, organic lentil sprout, and it's alive. It's full of life and energy.
It looks like lightning bolts coming out of it.
You can see the lightning, the light coming right after. You're feeding your body that. Everything starts working faster, just like those high-frequency computers that are operating at 400 or 500 megahertz.
Right, so in order for us to actually have our body functioning, we got to have that electrical circuit to complete the energy circuit so we can communicate, so everything functions. Now this next that. Let's talk about alkalinity right now, because one of the greatest changes that I experienced in my life was by alkalizing and energizing. That's one of the things you teach. Energizing means get those foods that are alive into your system, or get them in the form of drinks that are alive drinks, you know, these type of grass drinks. But then also you say, Tony, you got to alkalize, because you're on stage for 10 or 12 hours, you're putting out like that, you're building natural acids in your system, like a weightlifter lifting weights, and you've got to deal with those acids. And your body knows how to deal with it, but I'm putting an inordinate demand on my body, and I'm doing it day after day after day, like running marathons. And you said, what you got to do is put some buffers in there, some alkaline buffers. And before you explain what that is, I just got to tell people what a change. Because now all of a sudden I always had energy, but now I had energy to spare. And the best part was at the end, I didn't feel like I had a collapse, because I didn't feel like I was going through my reserves. Like I might be tired after I've been on stage for 12 hours, 3 straight days, you know, 12 hours a day. But I was comfortable. I was relaxed. I didn't have to go collapse and find a way to recover. Such disappear. taught people it, and you've shown me obviously the videos. Maybe we can put some on the screen here. What can you describe what we're actually seeing here? You know, what's occurring?
You bet. What is happening is the cell is going through pleomorphic changes. It's changing its form. It's going into a different form. So it's coming out of being a red blood cell, which appears to be disturbed, and it's going into a rod form, swimming through the blood serum. And then if we run that back, you'll see how it goes right back into a red blood cell. So it has the capability of changing its form based on what I perceive has everything to do with the environment. So my mindset now, through this research and these discoveries, is that the germ is a manifestation to some cellular disturbance, either emotional or physical disturbance, which gives rise to changes at the cellular level. And the germs are just the expression of that disturbance and cannot possibly cause any disease, but are the manifestation of those physical and emotional disturbances. If you look at this video, it's going in and it's picking up a yeast cell.
Now that the yeast cell is that big white round thing? look here, I think you'll see.
Yeah, you can see it consuming the yeast, and then it carries it for a while, and then here you see it then throwing
You know, because they're all told that your bones are going to break down, you're going to get osteoporosis.
Right.
And so what a lot of them do is they're out there trying to find drinking milk thanks for watching, and we wish you all the best. Make sure you take advantage of this, take some action, and live with passion. God bless.